Good morning and welcome to Let's Talk. I'm Tracy Morgan. So nice to always have you around this time of day. We are going to be talking with Lisa Gard with Specialized Staffing, and we're going to be joined with her for about 30 minutes talking about jobs and job losses and finding new jobs. But before we get to that, a couple of reminders for you. If you don't have the free app, if you need to be mobile, just download that through your Android or iPhone device and just plug in WISR 680 and it will come up for you. And if you're listening online, fabulous. And if you want to hear this program again, you'd go online. This is going to be our podcast of the day, WISR680.com, and that's the place to go. All right, so let's get to it. Miss Lisa Gard, how are you doing today?
Doing great, Tracy. How about you?
Good. It's always nice to talk to you. Specialized Staffing, of course, based here in Butler, but reaching out quite a few different places and helping people find jobs. Today we're talking about job loss, though. So interesting topic. How did you come up with this particular topic?
You know, this is something that I've presented on in the past, and it's a topic. It's an interesting topic because I think everybody in the workforce at one time or another, whether it was, your first job in high school or, a job that you got later on in life, I always say you haven't really paid your dues until you lost a job once, and it's hard to bounce back from that. We're talking about, we're focused on wellness this month, and oftentimes when you lose your job, it can be unexpected or expected. But it has a real effect, not just on you, but on the people around you. So I thought this would be a good topic to revisit.
It is, because, and I've been through it personally, whenever you just lose a job, unexpected and expected, more than one time in my life. And you mentioned take time to let it sink in, and I know the importance of that, but you explain, why is that so important?
Yeah, so even if it is expected, and I say that, and some people think, well, what do you mean you can expect to lose your job? But sometimes there are signs there, and sometimes there aren't. Oftentimes when I'm talking to people who have been laid off or, downsized or terminated, sometimes they're blindsided, but oftentimes in hindsight there were signs, and they saw the signs and didn't realize they were signs at the time. So, letting it sink in, even if you did kind of expect it, even if the writing was on the wall, the company was sold, or there was a change in leadership, or the business has been down for a long time, the minute you're told it's over, that's kind of a shock, even if you saw it coming. So I think it's important for people to let that sink in. I think we tend to go into panic mode. I say that because I talk to lots of candidates who've been through it, and that's what they tell me, and I've also been through it myself. So I think we go into panic mode. All those things start to run through our heads. Oh, my God, how am I going to make ends meet? How am I going to put food on the table? How am I going to make my car payment? I think you need to take time to let that sink in. And when I say take time to let that sink in, I don't mean, take weeks or months off. Obviously, we can't afford that. But you need to take a little bit of time to just let everything sink in, let the dust settle, let your head clear so that you can move forward with a clear head. That makes sense?
It does, and I don't want to jump too quickly into, yay, we have a new job when I ask this, but when you say, we got to get back into the game very quickly, if we don't take time to let this sink in and for us to process the whole thing, can that throw us off our game in finding a new job?
Heck yeah. So we talk to candidates pretty frequently who've lost their job and who haven't had an opportunity or haven't taken the opportunity or just have been having trouble letting it sink in. So they're still in disbelief. There are stages. There's disbelief, there's sadness, there's anger, there's resentment, and we talk to people who are in any one of those particular stages, and they haven't had enough time to kind of work through it in their heads. And so if you're distressed, if you're still angry, if you're still sad, if you're still in that I want to get even mode. That's coming through in the interview, and you're going to have a hard time landing another job. I know that sounds it sounds easier said than done, and that's why I say take the time to let your head clear. I don't mean weeks. Take the next day. Go clean your garage. Go visit a friend. Go do whatever it does, or do whatever you do to clear your head. But let things sink in. Let yourself believe that things are going to be okay, and then move forward.
Well, and I know it can be tough whenever you do move forward. And my question, even though you're already alluding to, don't take weeks, don't take years, don't take, months upon time to get a new job, but can't that creep back in? I mean, how long does it take for somebody to get over a job layoff? Because it could creep back
different.
in, 6 months, 8 months down the road, and something triggers you.
Yeah, no, so everybody's different. And, when I say, let it sink in, it's just the initial panic, the initial questions in your head need to be answered. How am I going to make ends meet? Typically when you're losing your job, there is some sort of severance package, or there are some sort of benefits that you qualify for. So you are going to have something coming in. You need to let those sorts of thoughts sink in. You need to reach out and tap into those resources that are going to help get you through the situation, so that you can calm down and relax and focus on your new job, which is getting a new job.
So, Lisa, there's got to be a point where you accept the fact that you got laid off. How do you start that part of this process?
Yeah, it sounds easier said than done, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does.
I know. When I was laid off from a job once, and I was devastated, and I left work that day with my stuff in a box, and I was sad and I was angry, and then later that evening I thought, they are never going to be able to survive without me. I'm the only one that knew how to do that. You know what? Everybody went back to work the next day, and the company moved right along without me. So you really do just have to realize that there's something better out there for you. If that wasn't the place for you, there's something better out there for you. There are different reasons for layoffs. Obviously, business can be down. There's an opportunity for you to find a job somewhere where there is more business, where there's a better future, where there's a better culture. You kind of have to find the positivity in the situation. And again, I realize it's hard when you're first starting to think about those things, but it's possible.
Lisa, I remember going through this whole entire process, too, and thinking on the other side, I thought, okay, I survived that. I'm all right. I'm good. Got a different job. And I'm wondering if when you went through that, or you talk to other people who have gone through that, and they feel like, okay, I can survive a job loss. This is okay. That it makes you a little bit more relaxed in the new job because you've been there, done it.
Yeah. It's funny. It's an analogy, but I used to race mountain bikes when I was very young, and I never was very good until I went over the bars and landed on my head. And I realized after the fact that I was always so afraid of falling that I wouldn't give it everything I needed to give it. And then I fell, and it hurt, but I survived, so then I wasn't afraid of falling anymore. So I performed much better once I did that, and it's kind of the same thing. Once you go through that and you realize that you can survive it, then you're not quite as afraid of it. It's never a good thing, though. It is never a good feeling. It is an awful feeling to lose your job. But it is. You can survive, and there are resources out there to help you through it. So. But you're right. Once you go through it, it's kind of like, all right, you got that notch under your belt, and you can move on.
Does it make a difference mentally when you're going through this process of a job layoff, whenever you've been, what seems to you've been laid off for no reason, versus there are very legitimate reasons why you're being laid off?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's very rare that somebody gets laid off for no reason. Normally, there's a reason if you're losing your job, whether it's a reason that's within your control or a reason that's not in your control. So I think, those are the two things to consider. Was there something I could have done differently to prevent this from happening? And if that's the case, what was it? So if you're if your company offers an exit interview, obviously a lot of people would want to use that to blow off steam, and I don't blame them, but try to remember to take that opportunity to find out what you could have done differently, if anything, to change the situation. So if it was a performance issue, what could you have done differently? If it was an attendance issue, moving forward, if you don't correct whatever the situation was that caused that, it's going to continue to happen. So what can you do differently moving forward to ensure that doesn't happen again? If it's something that was out of your control, if business took a downturn, you look at the price of oil and how that's affecting industry in our region, and there are companies that are struggling and people are getting laid off, and that's completely out of their control. However, what is in your control is the opportunity to take those signs and act on them and be proactive. So if you're in a position where business is down and it's continuing to be down, and you're seeing signs like other people jumping ship, or, even more, the leadership is jumping ship, now those are signs. So this is a case for always keeping that resume up to date. This is a case for always making sure you have people that you can use as references. This is being prepared in case that happens.
We're talking with Lisa Gard with Specialized Staffing, and today focusing on job losses, but then turning around and learning how to find a new job, and maybe even a better job possibly. But Lisa, in this process, you mentioned to next decide what you want. Okay, well, if we've just lost our job, first of all, can't that be hard? And then my follow-up question is, how do we go about then deciding what it is that we want next?
Sure. So, first of all, oftentimes companies who are laying people off, especially if they're, I shouldn't say especially if they're laying numerous people off, even companies that are only laying one or two people off, oftentimes they will provide some sort of outplacement service, outplacement help to their exiting employees. And if that is offered, absolutely take advantage of it. Oftentimes those services include help with your resume, working with a career coach. And when it comes to deciding what you want to do moving forward, think about the opportunity that's presented here. So, okay, yeah, you lost your job. That's traumatic. It's awful. But there are resources out there that will help you through it. So take advantage of the time you have and the resources you have to take the time to hone in on a better opportunity. I realize there are people out there that may not have that luxury, and they've just got to take the first thing that comes in so that they can keep money coming in. But if you have resources to tap into that are being offered by the company, to work with a career coach, or to, work with organizations that help you move forward and find that new job, take that opportunity, take advantage of it. And when I say to find something better, think about the previous jobs you've had. And if you take, even just take a piece of paper and write down all the things, all your favorite things about those jobs that you've had in the past. And then in the other column, write down all those things that you would leave behind if you could, the things you really didn't like doing, the things that you were good at and the things that you weren't good at. And of those things that you weren't good at, would you like to get better at these things so that you could do them moving forward? Do you like them? Those are the things you want to hone in on, because they can help you target what to look for moving forward. Are there some common denominators, and are there jobs out there moving forward in which you could do more of the things you liked and were good at and less of the things you didn't like and weren't good at? And what are those opportunities? Where are those jobs? And can you afford to take them? Or are they, do they require additional training? Oftentimes, if you're laid off, there's training available. If you quit your job, there normally isn't. So if you've been laid off, make sure you tap into every resource out there. So if there's something you decide you want to do that's going to require a little bit more training, then go ahead and take advantage of that training if you can, so that you can hone in on those opportunities in which you're going to be happier moving forward and more successful.
Okay, so Lisa, you've helped me accept the job loss. I've taken time. We've decided what it is that I want in the future. So I've just lost my job. Help me make a plan. So if I come to Specialized Staffing, how do you help people make that plan? How do we get started with that?
So, specialized staffing is one resource, and we're typically a good resource to come to when you have that target in mind, when you've decided that this is what I want to do. Then we're a resource. Any recruiter is a good resource there once you have an idea of what you want to do. We can look at your resume, we can look at your background, we can pinpoint those things that are appropriate to highlight moving forward given what you want to target. And you want to emphasize the things that are appropriate to what you're looking for and de-emphasize the things that are irrelevant. So depending on what you did before, let's just say you were in accounting, and now you want to be in purchasing. I'm just throwing those two things out there.
Yeah.
You haven't had purchasing experience in the past, and sometimes it's really hard to compete with other candidates who have the right experience. So, you look at your resume and you pull those things out that would be appropriate, that would be relevant to what you would use in a purchasing role. And it's easy enough to do because you have a job description, you see what's involved, and you can tie those things that you did in accounting to those things you may do in purchasing, and you pull the relevant things out, and you lose the irrelevant things. If you did payroll and there's really no mention of payroll in the job description, then you don't need to put it in the very upfront, first part of your resume. You still certainly want to list what you've done, but you want to highlight those things that are going to pop to somebody who's looking at your resume and trying to find those things you did that are relevant to that purchasing position. Does that make sense?
It does. And I have a question, too, because with everything that you're explaining, a person in my shoes, I've put quite a few years already into my career. So if I lose my job, what you're explaining sounds simple, but there's a fear for me because I'm thinking I've already been in the workforce for quite a few years. Am I going to get hired doing the same job, or do I have to change altogether? I mean, talk about the fear that people feel when they've already been in the workforce for quite some time.
So I think from talking to the candidates I've talked to in the past, the fear is more finance related. It's more, am I going to make as much money as I did before? Oftentimes when you're laid off, if you've been in a position for a long period of time, you're making, a decent amount of money, and oftentimes we talk to candidates who want to make at least the same amount of money. And if you capitalize on the experience you bring to the table, you can get there. Our clients typically, when they're giving us a pay range, when they're giving us a salary range, they're saying based on experience. Here's the low end of the range if somebody has just the very minimum requirements that doesn't bring everything to the table, or here's the high end of the range if somebody brings everything to the table. So if you've got a lot of experience and you want to continue to do the same type of work, you can get close to or what you're making if companies are paying for experience. Where we see the disconnect is when somebody's been in a position for a long time and they decide they want to do something completely different, but they want to make the same amount of money. That is not going to happen for obvious reasons.
Sure.
So if you've been in accounting for 20 years and you decide that you now want to be in sales, you're going to have to start completely over. And you can't expect a company to offer to pay for your accounting experience when you have no experience in what they want you to do. Now, you can sell yourself as a salesperson by tapping into those skills and abilities you bring to the table and highlighting them on your resume, but you're still going to have to prove yourself to earn what you were earning in most cases. Does that make sense?
It does. So, Lisa, if we have this plan together and we want to move forward with it, is it going to take some time? Should we expect this to take 6 months and a year because we are changing jobs, or should we expect a response within a couple of weeks?
Sure. It totally depends on the economy and the job market. on average, and I'm not sure where this statistic came from, so I apologize, but I know it is a statistic that I've used in the past, and I know I found it online, that the average job search can take 1 month for every $10,000 in salary. So if you're looking at a $50,000 a year job in an average economy, you can expect it to take about 5 months.
So then, how do we get this new plan off the ground? How do we get the new job? Move us forward. Get us hired, there, Lisa.
Mm-hmm, sure. So your new job, after you've let it sink in, so whether you took a day or whether you took a week or whether you took the summer, because some people do that, but once you decide that you're going to start that job search, your job now is your job search. And if you're going to sit down at your computer and surf the job boards an hour each morning, it's going to take you a lot longer to find a job. Your new job now is a full-time job to be looking for another job. So you've got to tap into a lot of resources, and you really have to hit it hard to make that happen. So obviously there are the traditional resources, the internet, job boards, media, the want ads, So you want to spend some time looking at those things daily. Some cool technology out there, Indeed, Indeed.com. If you go on Indeed.com, you can set up alerts. You can go on there, and once you've decided what types of jobs and what region you want to work in, maybe it's a 50-mile radius of Pittsburgh, you can put all that criteria into Indeed, and you can get email alerts. So you can set up Indeed alerts that will send you an email whenever a new opportunity appears on a job board that matches what you're looking for. So tap into those sorts of resources. Tap into your network of contacts, of people that you know, your past employer, previous employers, people who work at companies that maybe you've identified that you would like to work at. If you know people that work at these companies through church or PTA or soccer, tap into those networks of people. See if you can sit down and have coffee with them. Ask them about the organization, what it's like to work there. Who are the right contacts in case there are opportunities? Who can you reach out to?
Lisa, let me ask you this because, again, when we talk, it sounds so easy, but when you're actually doing this, sometimes it can be a little difficult. And what if we just have this plan that doesn't seem to be moving forward? I don't know whether we have lofty goals or we can't move or, we're just not getting out of it what we want. What do we do? Do we have to readjust at that point?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you need to look back at that and see where the bottleneck is. Hopefully you're getting some feedback. And again, I can't stress enough to tap into your networks because they can give you feedback. Maybe you're expecting too much money for the experience you're bringing to the table. Maybe the industry that you're targeting really isn't strong enough to support, a quick job search. So you definitely do want to take advantage of all those resources out there that can give you that feedback.
Lisa Gard is with us with Specialized Staffing, of course, based right here in Butler and reaching out to many different areas in western Pennsylvania, even into Ohio. And we're focusing on the job loss today, but then turning around and finding a new job and making sure that gets turned around. And Lisa, I know we're talking about the plan and getting that underway and executing the plan, but what if we actually do have an interview or maybe on the resume? How do we explain the fact that we just were let go or fired or whatever the situation was? How do we explain that job loss?
Sure. It's a lot easier when there was a downsizing, huh?
Yeah, I could blame it on something, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But, there's a place out there for everyone. People go through stages in their lives where things go wrong. They have personal problems, illnesses, things like that. And employers do understand that. So be honest. If you were terminated because of something that was in your control, just be honest about it. Rip it off like a Band-Aid, that's what I say, and then move forward. So, okay, I had some situations during this period, missed a lot of work, but that situation has been resolved, and I'm ready to move forward, and I'm dependable, and I can come to work every day. You move on. You state the fact, and then you redirect the attention to something positive. This wasn't the environment for me. I'm looking forward to getting a job with a company in which I can be involved in part of a team, and I'm looking forward to learning more about your opportunity. You know what I mean? You just rip it off like a Band-Aid and redirect
Move forward. Yeah, absolutely. And Lisa, when you've been talking today about, taking time to let it sit in, accept it, it's basically a process that you're talking about, and it's a healthy process to be able to go through. How do we stay healthy as we go through the whole process in getting another job?
That's a really great question, and that is so important. Oftentimes we talk to candidates who are going through this process, and they're just beat up. I mean, just mentally, physically, you could just tell they're so down. And it's a challenge to keep yourself energized during this process, but it's so important for your health to do that. And also, it's so important for the people around you. So, absolutely, you want to continue to be active. Think about when you're at work, you set your alarm early, you get up, you get dressed, you're out the door at 8 o'clock in the morning, and think about what happens or what could happen if you're not working. You start to sleep in, and you start to maybe, it's 10, 11 o'clock, and you realize you're still in your pajamas. That's kind of that's an unhealthy trend to start getting into. So continue to set your alarm. Get up. If you don't have to leave the house to go to work, leave the house and take a walk, and come back energized. Hit the computer, start making phone calls. Go to the gym if you work out at the gym. Just make sure that you keep yourself active, and then also make sure you're eating healthy. Make sure that your diet is consisting of good, nutritious food that's going to help your energy level and to help you stay motivated and isn't going to weigh you down.
Lisa, in our last couple of minutes, of course, we want your contact information. You've already mentioned some resources that we could tap into, but mention any other resources that you haven't been able to get to yet.
Sure. So yeah, we have a career portal that is called myspecializedcareer.com. You can you can go onto our website, specializedstaffinginc.com, and find that career portal, and that will offer several resources, including a template for you to create a resume. There are you can create one login and search numerous job boards at one time. Lots of different interview videos, how to prepare for interviews, things like that. So that's one resource. Also, I had mentioned that oftentimes companies will offer help, such as a career coach. And if you go on pittsburghcareercoach.org, you can have access to a lot of different career and life coaches that if, maybe your company will offer to pay for these services, or maybe you can afford to pay for them. But coaches are very helpful in helping you to make that plan, but also holding you accountable, which is a little tough when you're not working. Sometimes it's easy to lose track of that. And then one more resource I really like is onet.org. If you type that into your search engine, onet.org, O-N-E-T. This is a government site, and this is a really cool site to play around on if you're trying to figure out what you want to do next. This is a site where you can enter the types of things that you like to do, and it brings up all kinds of different potential career options. It's just a really cool site to play around on, whether you're laid off or not. If you've ever just daydreamed about doing other types of work, that's a great resource. And
again, Lisa, your contact information?
Sure. We can be reached via phone at 724-287-8380, online at www.specializedstaffinginc.com.
Lisa Gard with Specialized Staffing. Lisa, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks, Tracy.
And folks, thank you very much for joining us as well. Of course, you can always go online and get this segment as a podcast again. It's WISR680.com. I'm Tracy Morgan with Let's Talk.